The SS Hemorrhage was not a ship. It was a public warning. Its hull was fractured in 14 places. Half its internal corridors were exposed to vacuum. The reactor core screamed like a dying animal cycling between overload and shutdown every 90 seconds. Entire subsystems had been fused together by molten bulkheads, and the last crew that tried to repair it had died when the life support AI suffered a cascading existential failure and vented the bridge. The Galactic engineers' Gauntlet had a reputation. It existed for one reason: to prove that primitive species did not belong among the great powers of the galaxy. 20 competitors, 7 days, 1 broken warship each. Final test, combat simulation. Most species quit by day 3, some by day 1. No one had ever drawn the hemorrhage and survived. So when the judges assigned it to the lone human entrant, the reaction chamber filled with amusement. High Judge Velix of the Vryn adjusted his ceremonial crest and smiled thinly. "This," he announced, "will be educational. Day 1. Juno Reeves stared at the ship in silence. 26 years old, grease-stained jumpsuit, dark hair pulled into a messy knot that suggested she'd given up caring halfway through life. She didn't scream, didn't argue, didn't collapse in horror like the Trisk engineer 2 births over, who had just discovered his ship contained 6 mutually exclusive gravity systems trying to exist in the same space. Juno sealed her pressure suit, magnetized her boots, and stepped into the wreck. "Okay," she muttered, floating upside down as atmosphere bled out past her shoulder. "Engines first." The observers blinked. Life support was failing. Radiation levels were rising. The ship was literally on fire, and the human chose engines. Judge Velix frowned. Day 2. By the second rotation, 5 competitors had withdrawn. 2 were hospitalized for neural overload. 1 had curled into a defensive spiral and refused to speak. The Vryn engineering mind did not multitask well. Most species didn't. Their cognition treated simultaneous failures as an existential attack. Humans didn't. Juno worked with music playing inside her helmet. She patched a fusion conduit using a coolant hose and part of a ceremonial blade she'd found welded into the floor. She ignored the screaming reactor alarms. She ignored the missing deck plating. She ignored the fact that the ship's AI was having a philosophical debate with itself about whether continued existence constituted suffering. "Later," she told it. "I'll reboot you after lunch." The AI stopped talking. Several judges leaned closer to their displays. Day 3 sabotage began quietly. A pressure seal was loosened, a diagnostic report altered, a stabilizer coil removed and hidden. The Gauntlet had rules, but enforcement was flexible. Juno discovered the sabotage 3 hours later when Deck 7 tried to decompress again. She sighed. Rude. She fixed it. Then she installed redundant manual overrides on every critical system, bypassing alien automation entirely. Judge Velix's crest twitched. "That design philosophy is barbaric," one Vryn murmured. "Effective," another whispered. Day 4. The Hemorrhage's weapon systems were a nightmare. 3 incompatible platforms from 3 extinct empires, energy signatures that actively rejected each other. Firing one would normally disable the others. Juno stared at the schematics. Then she laughed. "Oh, you guys never invented adapters." She spent 12 hours building a hybrid firing relay out of scrap cabling, power couplers, and a repurposed food synthesizer. When she test-fired the system, all 3 weapons synced. The recoil shattered an observation window. Alarms blared across the station. Judge Velix stood up slowly. "That should not be possible." Juno's ship hummed happily. Day 5. The competitors were gone. Juno was alone. The Gauntlet organizers escalated. The final combat simulation parameters were adjusted. Enemy numbers tripled. Weapon cooldowns were extended. Environmental hazards were added. It was no longer a test. It was an execution. Juno read the briefing, chewed a protein bar, and shrugged. Guess I'll prioritize targets. Day 6. The simulation began. 20 enemy drones, then 40, then 80. The hemorrhage shook, screamed, bled atmosphere. Juno stayed calm. She rerouted power manually, shut down secondary shields to reinforce engines. Ventral plating burned away, and she used the exposed hull to vent excess heat from the reactor. She lured drones into debris fields, used one weapon system to overload another on purpose, creating EMP bursts that wiped out clusters of enemies. Judge Velix watched, silent. The human wasn't fighting chaos, she was organizing it. Day 7, final wave, a simulated dreadnought, impossible odds. No previous competitor had survived more than 12 seconds. Juno cracked her neck. "All right," she said. "Last item on the list." She disabled safety limiters, overcharged the hybrid weapons, let the ship burn. The hemorrhage did not win cleanly. It won ugly. It rammed, fired through damaged conduits, venting plasma and atmosphere alike. When the simulation ended, the dreadnought was gone. So was half the ship. But the core was stable. The engines were online. Juno floated back in her chair, exhausted. Good enough for now. Silence filled the chamber. Then, panic. The judges realized something horrifying. If a single human mechanic could do this with a death trap designed to kill her, what could a human fleet do with ships built properly? Judge Velix felt something his species rarely experienced. Fear. Aftermath. Juno didn't ask for power. She didn't ask for weapons, she asked for scrap rights. And when granted victory, she shared her schematics freely. With the anxious junior engineers who'd failed, with species who'd been laughed out of the Gauntlet for 10,000 years. The Galactic Engineering Council issued a quiet advisory 3 cycles later. Do not underestimate humans. They will work while everything is on fire, and somewhere in deep space a rebuilt ship drifted, patched, humming, dangerous, the SS Hemorrhage, no longer a warning, a promise.